But I went with her though.
He could have called.
He could have called. They wouldn't answer. No, pre-caller ID.
Pre-caller
They
ID. You would answer.
Yeah. Hung up on it.
You had no choice.
You're right.
You know, I probably called and the phone was busy. Pre-call waiting. You know what I mean?
True that. Like that father figure, that man figure in your life would have told you. You wish they would have told you in your 20s.
I wish they would have told me how painful it would be.
What part?
All of it.
Yeah.
Say more.
Growth is painful. Uncomfortable that turns into painful sometimes. I wish they wouldn't have said painful. I wish they would have used the word uncomfortable. Right? If it's comfortable, you're probably not growing.
Right.
I look back at what I thought was negative experiences at the time. Those were my greatest experiences of growth.
Yeah.
You know, I think of the breakups. I think of my divorce. I think of my losses financially. I think of the hard decisions I had to make. I think of people's feelings I hurt along the way, relationship with my mother, my father, all the family stuff. But those were all leaping points in my growth. The stuff that I was so proud of and beating my chest, most of those I was still in the same place. I didn't move an inch. That was just feeding my ego.
Yeah, man, in the coaching world, we say comfort zone, stretch zone, panic zones, right? And those stretch zones is where you grow. You cannot grow, as you said, in those comfort zones. What say you, Brett?
That there are no absolutes. That you are very rarely ever 100% sure. And so when you choose a direction, just go in the direction.
You rocking on faith.
Yeah.
But faith on information that
definitive, well, based in some real empirical data
Right.
and proper judgment.
Right.
And that failure is not negative.
Right.
I wish they would have told me, like, when I figured out that
part.
failure was not negative,
That part.
it was liberating. That it's okay. It's okay. And that even within that space, that even if you work as hard as you're going to work and you put forth all every fiber of your being and focus, that doesn't guarantee success either. You know what I mean? Because you're told that if you put together a certain group of principles and go a certain way, you will succeed. No, sir. No, sir.
But here's what I think is even lost in that is we grow in that quote unquote failure, right? So success is not necessarily, oh, we missed the mark, sinning, right? We missed the mark. It's who did we become in that situation, right? What do we find out about ourselves? What do we know new about ourselves? How do we evolve, switch, pivot, change, whatever? Because we thought it was this and it wasn't, it was not like, oh shit, we got there, it wasn't what we thought it was. It was like, okay, look at myself. How did I evolve in that process?
Keep score, but don't count.
Oh, okay. Explain that. Say more.
You can't run away from what you've done. They're keeping score. You can't be a rogue ass dude your whole life and not suffer from the fallout because you've affected people, right? But internally, don't count. What I mean is, don't pile up on yourself.
Don't beat yourself
because
up.
you can transform.
Right.
But with your transformation, does not guarantee other folks forgiveness, other folks understanding. You're not entitled to any of it. You got to stand on the decisions that you made in those moments, right? I was young. I didn't know.
It's all excuses.
All excuses. You did what you did. You got to stand on that square, right? That does not mean you don't grow. That does not mean you don't evolve. But I was young is not an excuse.
You're not defined by your worst moment, but you also are not defined by your very best moment. It's an amalgamation of all your experiences.
Amalgamation.
Yeah.
I think it has something to do with steel.
It has something to do with
And you know,
drawing, right? Is that animation? I was like,
No, amalgamation. That was a,
And you
that
know,
was a-
we do that too often too, though.
that was an album name for Outkast that didn't make it.
they ended up calling it Equimini.
Like, yeah, it's going to be amalgamation.
So what were you saying, Rick?
We end up. I'm doing A's in my head for A names and then getting to Equimini. We end up sitting in certain spaces too long. We end up celebrating our victories far too up and beating our chest too much. And there's other times in whatever phase, whatever we're going through emotionally in life, we end up tearing ourselves down far too much and destroying, our own self-esteem. If you have a self-awareness, because we know some people that don't have self-awareness and they're just not capable of being self-critical. So the key thing is not to wallow in either one of those spaces.
And there are real examples of that, right? I have a guy, a buddy, a client. He climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, right? The last night of that climb, he said they started like in the middle of the morning. So by the time they got to the peak, the sun would be rising. Like, beautiful sight. The thing is, you can't hold that too long. If you stay at the peak too long before you start descending, it fucks everything up.
Yeah.
Right? So if you celebrate too much, you
destroy your
yourself.
descent.
You destroy your descent.
Yeah.
So that's a great point.
That's a great analogy.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. It touched my heart.
But that wasn't mine. That was his.
I know. What I'm saying is, it touched my heart. It's just wow. I wanted to hug you. I told my son this once. I was like, you got to get to fucking up and not fucking down.
Go ahead. Explain. Unpack that.
Because he was talking about learning from your failures. Most of the greatest failures, they come from trying. They come from fucking up.
Yeah.
How many times, man, do you think that in the making of Microsoft, how many times was that computer fucked up? How many ideas in Apple? How many times fucking up in the plans? Take it back to George Washington Carver, working with them peanuts. How many times you think he